then one can be under the dura, one can be above the dura, like, being the plug for the skull. They can talk to each other, but the thing that you want to upgrade, the computer and not the threads, if you want to upgrade that, you just go in there, remove the screws and then put in the next version, and you're off the, it's a very, very easy surgery too. Like, you do a skin incision, slip this in, screw, probably be able to do this in 10 minutes.
So that would allow you to reuse the threads, sort of.
Correct.
So, I mean, this leads to the natural question of what is the pathway to scaling the increase in the number of threads? Is that a priority? Is that like, what's the technical challenge there?
Yeah, that is a priority. So for next versions of the implant, the key metrics that we're looking to improve are number of channels, just recording from more and more neurons. We have a pathway to actually go from currently 1,000 to hopefully 3,000, if not 6,000 by end of this year.
Wow.
And then end of next year, we want to get to, even more, 16,000.
Wow.
There's a couple limitations to that. One is, obviously being able to photolithographically print those wires. As I mentioned, it's 2 micron in width and spacing. Obviously, there are chips that are much more advanced than those types of resolution, and we have some of the tools that we have brought in-house to be able to do that. So traces will be narrower, just so that you have to have more of the wires coming up into the chip. Chips also cannot linearly consume more energy as you have more and more channels. So there's a lot of innovations in the circuit, and architecture as well as the circuit design topology to make them lower power. You need to also think about, if you have all of these spikes, how do you send that off to the end application? So you need to think about bandwidth limitation there and potentially innovations in signal processing. Physically, one of the biggest challenges is going to be the interface. It's always the interface that breaks. Bonding this thin film array to the electronics, it starts to become very, very highly dense interconnects. So how do you connectorize that? There's a lot of innovations in kind of the 3D integrations in the recent years that we can take advantage of. One of the biggest challenges that we do have is forming this hermetic barrier, right? This is an extremely harsh environment that we're in, the brain. So how do you protect it from, like the brain trying to kill your electronics to also your electronics leaking things that you don't want into the brain, and that forming that hermetic barrier is going to be a very, very big challenge that we, I think are actually well suited to tackle.
How do you test that? Like, what's the development environment?
Yeah,
to simulate that kind of harshness?
Yeah, so this is where the accelerated life tester essentially is a brain in a vat.
Mm-hmm.
It literally is a vessel that is made up of, and again, for all intents and purpose for this particular types of tests, your brain is a salt water,
mm-hmm.
and you can also put some other set of chemicals like reactive oxygen species that get at kind of these interfaces and trying to cause a reaction to pull it apart. But you could also increase the rate at which these interfaces are aging by just increasing temperature. So every 10 degrees Celsius that you increase, you're basically accelerating time by 2x. And there's a limit as to how much temperature you want to increase, because at some point there's some other nonlinear dynamics that causes you to have other nasty gases to form that just is not realistic in an environment.